And we're back. And I think that episode 3 has been the best we've seen of two sugar babies and their sugar daddy so far. Oh, I mean the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, of course. And I have some theories on who the Powerbroker might be. So without further ado, let's talk television. More about our least favorite white guy in this show, aka John Walker. We learn that he works for a government agency called the Global Repatriation Council. He basically works as muscle for them. We see him visiting some people who had taken in the Flagsmashers and given them free room and board, basically. And let's not forget that Lamar bailed him out of a sticky situation because Lamar was the only one who could speak German. So John Walker thought he was just gonna roll up in there and like take people into custody that may not speak English, so may not be able to understand that he was taking them into custody. So that's troublesome. Anyway, we see John sort of lose it. He's demanding respect. He's getting in people's faces. Don't you know who I am? Now, Steve Rogers would have never done that because Steve never asked for that kind of stuff. His, the things that he did garnered him the respect that he got. We know that. We know that he's no Captain America. They didn't play an incredibly large role in this episode, which is great because John is annoying. But, I have to mention, of course, that toward the end of the episode, both Lamar and John agree that they're going to go off the book to try and get Bucky and Sam. So, whatever, we'll see more about that next episode, I'm sure. So, Bucky visited Zemo in prison, and Zemo, of course, is reading Machiavelli, because of course he is. And, poor Sam, man. Sam's along for the ride. He thinks they're following leads to try and figure out where the super soldier serum is, and nope, Bucky big-brained getting Zemo out of prison. Unbeknownst to poor Sam. Poor Sam, who's gonna become, like, a fugitive again, basically, and he's just trying to get his life back on track, and I feel so bad for him. But basically, they break Zemo out of jail, and they all get together. The boys are back in town. I thought it was really cool to see Bucky big brain something like this, because I think we forget a lot that he has all of this knowledge because he's such a quiet and withdrawn character. But, I mean, he ascended the ranks of the military farther than even Steve Rogers did. He became a sergeant. He was Sergeant Barnes. So, he has all of that military knowledge, and that's also why he's like a super sharp shooter, but also on top of that, all of the, assassin training. Why is my comfort character a literal serial killer? I don't want to analyze that too much. Okay, anyways, the boys are all together. We learn that Zemo is indeed very rich. He's a baron, as he is in the comics, but it's just weird because it was never mentioned before, right? It was never mentioned that he was part of the royal family of Sokovia. It just kind of seems like something they're putting in on the back end. Okay, Marvel, that's fine. Whatever. But he's rolling in it, and Sam and Bucky are gonna be his sugar babies. I like this dynamic. I like his coat. His coat says sugar daddy. Now we have to talk a little bit about why it was a good idea, I think, to bring Zemo into this show at all. Zemo's whole shtick is that he doesn't like too much power to congregate. So he doesn't like powered people, and he doesn't like, alliances like the Avengers. He worked to stop the Winter Soldier program. Of course, Bucky was the only one to survive that after he got his hands on it. Then he tried to take out the Avengers and in the process killed King T'Chaka. And then he, of course, framed it on Bucky. It was this whole big mess. You saw the movies. You also saw the episode. But here's why I think it's smart to bring him in, because so far, and I hope they keep with this, that he is an uncompromising character. He believes in exactly what he believes in, and Sam and Bucky both know that. And so I think that it sort of leads to this weird symbiotic relationship where the two, Sam and Bucky, are using Zemo and Zemo is using them. They both kind of want a common goal, but also kind of also not. I think it leaves the door open for the question of whether or not Zemo is going to turn around one day and try and take Bucky out, because Bucky is the last of the Winter Soldiers. He is the Winter Soldier, right? That would make sense to me. It would particularly make sense after seeing him murder the scientists that they go to visit. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here. So the boys go to Madripore. It's this sort of seedy underbelly place that's run by this alleged person called the Powerbroker. We're going to talk about the Powerbroker later as well. And they meet with this person called Selby. Poor Bucky has to pretend to be the Winter Soldier and pretend to be controllable again. I cannot imagine that was very good for his already suffering mental health. Poor baby Buck. Y'all need to leave him alone. Anyways, things go south. A guardian angel assassin comes out of the woodworks and shoots all the bad guys who are like trying to come after Sam and Bucky and Zemo, because now there is a bounty on their head because the person they were talking to was murdered after things sort of went south. Thanks to Sharon, they make it out of there alive, And they go back to Sharon's place and find out that she's been living in Madripore because she wasn't pardoned, and she's sort of dealing like black market art, essentially. But I was excited to see Sharon, and I've said in previous videos that I was like a little trepidatious because Marvel doesn't have like a great history of writing like well-rounded women. And I'm trepidatious again. I wanted her to be super kick butt, and it's not that she wasn't, but she just, like, her personality just sucked. She's like so jaded by the world, and it was just like a lot. It was so much, it made me almost secondhand embarrassed. Like, I get it. I also refuse to believe that out of all the people who participated in all the stuff that happened during the Accords, that Sharon Carter, of all people, wasn't pardoned. What she did would have been considered heroism no matter what, right? Like, I think she had the least offense, and for her to still not be pardoned, I don't buy that. And so I have some theories about her that we'll get to. So once we meet with Sharon and we get that awesome scene of Zemo dancing, that's probably my favorite part. They go to find the scientist that is creating these super soldier serums, right? Sharon helps them find this scientist named Nagel. A little Easter egg here, Nagel in the comics is actually the scientist who experiments on Isaiah and the other black soldiers. The timeline for that wouldn't work because Nagel is not old, but just a little Easter egg for you guys. So they go and find Nagel. He's in like this weird shipping container turned scientist lab, right? And there's a lot of pivotal moments here, but I think one of them is really important that we shouldn't overlook. It reminds me of being in AP literature again, where they just keep bringing back the same sort of question, but framed different ways. It first started when the police stopped Bucky and Sam on the street outside of Isaiah's house. And Bucky's really upset with the police because they're questioning Sam. And Bucky's like, don't you know who he is? He's the Falcon, you know what I mean? And then the police are like, oh, like, so sorry, Sam Wilson. And then we see the same sort of question again when John Walker gets in the face of that guy and he says, don't you know who I am? And now we have the three gentlemen, Zemo, Bucky, and Sam, with Nagel the scientist. And the scientist sees Bucky, and people know who Bucky is. That's like when he was fighting in the bar, people were taking video. I'm sure that video is going to pop up somewhere, and it's going to be a bummer for Bucky. Because he's been pardoned publicly for his crimes, which were also public. So, like, you know, Sam goes, you know who he is. It just shows a lot of, like, the different kinds of respect that these different kinds of characters need and want and have because of the kinds of people that they are. I just think it's pretty interesting. Now, we learned that this scientist, Nagel, he was dusted. And before he was dusted in the blip, he worked for the CIA. He was very close to getting the super soldier serum. When he came back, the Powerbroker hired him and he created 20 vials of the super soldier serum that were stolen by Carly. And he had recently been contacted by Carly because somebody that she loved, we learned her name is Madanya, was very sick with tuberculosis because she lives in one of those camps where people live when they came back from the blip because there was too many people and not enough resources. We see, of course, that Madanya does die, and in true Marvel fashion, they use this to radicalize Carly, who goes with her Flagsmasher friends to collect a bunch of stuff, Robin Hood style, but instead of leaving the people in power sort of tied up and left there helpless, she blows up the building and kills a bunch of people, so that's going to be her villain origin story, whatever. Back to Nagel, he said he didn't have anything for her, he doesn't care about her issues, and there was no super soldier serum on the premises, basically. And the boys seemed okay with that, Sam and Bucky, like they were going to leave or something, and Zemo just shoots him right in the head. And I love that Zemo did this because, again, I want to see Zemo staying true to, like, his message, and his message is no power people, no abuse of power, I don't like it, I don't even want the person who has the ability to make something like this to even exist. And so he shoots them and kills them, even though it puts a big target on their back in terms of the Powerbroker. Yikes. So then we flash back to Sharon, who's outside, and she's telling the dudes in their in-ear monitors, like, hello, like, people are coming to kill you, like, there's bounty on your head, like, you need to leave. And she is super kick butt, even though her personality super sucks right now. She was just killing dudes straight up left and right, like, brutally. I have a couple of theories about that as well, about why she was just so lethal, right? They end up getting out of the scrape thanks to Zemo pulling up in a very cool looking car, and they make their way to Latvia because they follow, like, this lead. And so we have all of these groups sort of converging, right? So we have the Flagsmashers who are already in Latvia, we have John and Lamar who are on their way trying to find Sam and Bucky, and theoretically also the Flagsmashers. We have Sam, Bucky, and Zemo headed to Latvia, right? So in the next episode, theoretically, we're going to see some kind of convergence. But at the end of the episode, we see some very, very important things. One, we see Sharon, of course, being escorted into a vehicle saying, "We've got a problem," to somebody we don't know. And then, of course, we see Bucky, who happens to just very easily, because he's super trained, find Wakandan technology, and he's visited by Ayo. If you remember her, she's part of the all-woman Wakandan army. She's definitely a bigwig. And he says to her, "I was wondering when you would get here." We're going to analyze some of that as well. Here are a couple of things that I think for the future, right? In terms of the Powerbroker, now if you don't know who the Powerbroker is, basically in the comics, there are two versions of the Powerbroker, but it's like Powerbroker Inc. Originally, this guy Curtis, he hires this like mad scientist to do experiments on superhuman people, right? And so it's kind of following that same ideology with Nagel, right? That the Powerbroker had hired Nagel to create superpowered humans. But famously in the comics, the first person that the Mad Doctor tries to work on is named Sharon. It's not Sharon Carter. And basically he kidnaps her and really terrible stuff happens to her. And before he can experiment on her, she escapes. Now, I wonder if Sharon Carter has gotten the serum and if she's loyal to the Powerbroker. It would explain why she was just kicking just so much butt. Like, don't get me wrong. She's super cool and she's very highly trained. I'm not trying to say like, oh, she can only be that cool if she's the super soldier. Like, you know me better than that. But I think that that's a possibility. My other thoughts are maybe she's under like super deep cover, because why wouldn't she have been pardoned? That seems ridiculous to me. My other thought is she the Powerbroker? You know what I mean? That would be kind of cool. Her personality still sucks, but I'd be down for that, right? We don't know why she says that there's a problem. I mean, we know why. It's Bucky, Zemo, and Sam. But to what degree is there a problem? Is there a problem because they've killed Nagel and the Powerbroker is after them now and she doesn't want anything bad to happen to them? Or is there a problem because she knows how good they are and they're going to get in the way? You know, there's lots of like possibilities for that. Likewise, there's lots of possibilities as to why Bucky said, "I was wondering when you would get here," or whatever he said to that effect, right? To Ayo when she showed up. Some people on the internet think that he's gone full white wolf, that he works for the Wakandan government and he's been undercover this entire time, right? Which is pretty interesting. Undercover, why? Because ultimately he wanted to break Zemo out of jail so they could get Zemo and take custody of him so he could pay for his crimes, aka killing T'Chaka. Possibly. Or, of course, the other more obvious one is like, "I was wondering when you would get here because I'm sure you heard that I broke Zemo out of jail and you're coming to yell at me about it." And, you know, she says she's here for Zemo. So there's sort of a couple interpretations, I guess you could take there. I don't know. This isn't a mystery box show like WandaVision was, you know what I mean? Like every week with WandaVision, we would just like make conjecture and be super wild about it. This is more rooted in like real life, minus like the superhero stuff. So it's a little harder to just like guess into the ether. But I think those are all like fairly solid assumptions, you know? Why not? But I still want to see more of Sharon. I hope we circle back to Isaiah, but I'm not sure that we're going to. We did hear that they were able to make super soldier serum from Isaiah's blood, which is pretty crazy and also really sad. And it just like proves the point that Isaiah was saying, like, you don't know what they did to me. And that is just like makes me really sad. But I'm really loving where the Falcon and the Winter Soldier is going. I'm enjoying it a lot. I think it's obviously got such a different tone than WandaVision, but I'm loving all of the action, and I love seeing Sam and Bucky become these like full realized characters where we get like a lot of their backstory as well, because, you know, they were great in the Avengers movies and the MCU so far, but, you know, we get to know them as like more full human beings, and I hope we get that with Zemo and also Sharon Carter as well. I guess we'll see what happens. I don't know. I think the whole using a dying loved one to create a villain origin story for Carly is kind of lame, so I hope that they pull something out with that, but, you know, like, they're making her out to be like unstable and like risking it all now because somebody died. You know what I mean? Like, she was risking it all before for the people, right? And they weren't like taking lives like that. They were just taking things. They were doing the whole Robin Hood thing. And now it just seems like she's being a little more ruthless, which of course spells danger for everyone. And where's Torres? Give me Torres back. I miss him. His sweet little face. All right, that's all I have for you guys this week. I really appreciate you tuning in, and chatting with me about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Let me know if you're enjoying it, or if you're hating it, or all of your theories. You think Bucky's a white wolf in it? I want to know. Tweet me, hello_Destiny on Twitter. I also sometimes post pictures of my dog, and he's really cute, so it's worth a follow. And I'd love to chat with you there, or drop me a comment. I also respond to all of those as well. I appreciate you all. I hope you're having a wonderful week. I can't wait to see you guys next week, same-ish time, same place. And until then, this has been Nerd News with Destiny.